All right. All right. Welcome to Capital Culture. I'm your host, Christopher Wheeler. And today we have a hip hop content creator that I don't think hip hop know we needed. So with that, I want to welcome Micheal Rivers to the show, son of Bruce Rivers. How you doing?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Perfect. Well, I appreciate you joining me. I know it's the 4th of July out there, so I'm sure you have some plans. But with that, I want to jump into things because I know a lot of people have a lot of questions on how this started and whatnot. So with that, let me get to my first question. You've started your career in content creation, I've seen, but I'm also aware that you're in law, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I'm going into my 3rd year in law school right now. So which is your last year.
Okay, so with that, one of my first questions is, you see how far you're going in content creation. Do you kind of feel like you might stay with content creation, or do you think at the end of the day, you might become a lawyer and pack it in, or you could go so far with Bruce, you never know what could happen. So what would be your sense there?
Yeah, right now, I think that both routes are, in my future for sure. I think that I would like to kind of do as much as both as I can continue to do. And I mean, as the thing gets bigger and as more people start to become involved with the production and whatnot, it'll give me a little bit more leeway to do the law stuff. But I just at least want to graduate law school and become an attorney, just to have that as kind of another option for life. But the content creation is definitely where my heart is at right now. I mean, I love everything about it. I've been doing it for a long time as far as video production and things around that kind of category.
So you'd say your passion lies with content creation, and if it does manifest and it does seem feasible for you to continue this path down the road, you will. But it's a nice safety net to become a lawyer. Now, are you becoming a defense attorney or are you becoming a prosecutor?
I could never be a prosecutor. I'll tell you that. I grew up around criminal defense, as you already know. I grew up around some of the greats, the local greats here in Minnesota, and coming into the office since I was a little kid, and I've always been on the side of the defense. And throughout my own trials and tribulations with the law and my upbringing, I've always just kind of been defense oriented. Right now, I work for the Federal Defender's Office, which is a public defender if you've been charged with a federal crime. And that office is absolutely amazing. And that's where I'd want to see myself there, private practice like Bruce does.
And of course, you're in Minneapolis with Bruce, so you're actually across from a lot of injustices in the last couple of years. Speaking of George Floyd and whatnot, how that has affected you at all? Yeah,
definitely. So I was over on 30th in Chicago the day after the killing of George Floyd. And that was before a lot of the stuff happened. And from before it got such international attention, the immediate community around Minneapolis, especially South Minneapolis, had this sort of collectivism that was so just in the mindset of promoting justice and promoting being there for one another. And we have a really strong, it's a big city, but there's still a lot of sort of elements that you would see in a small town where everyone's kind of got each other's back, and especially that area. And I've done photography for a while, so I was doing some photography throughout all the events that portrayed after that. And I mean, all the tangents that came off of that have seeped into everybody's life if they live in the city, and everybody outside of the city wants to have the strongest opinions on what's actually going on inside of Minneapolis. But there is a huge movement towards progress right now, and it is shared by no matter who you are in Minneapolis. If you live here, first time you saw that video, first time the whole movement came out, you had passion. You had a lot of passion.
So with that being said, I don't want to cut you off, but a lot of passion. Do you think 22 and a half years is enough?
No, I don't. I think that it's weird when you talk about sentencing to kind of quantify. I think just him being in that position of power, complete indifference to life. I've seen a lot of sentencing go down, whether it's drug trafficking, whether it's all these other things where people are put away for 30, 40 plus years. And they didn't have nearly the, I guess you could call it mens rea, the punishable mindset that I think Derek Chauvin had a much more punishable mindset in that case.
Fair enough. Now, you mentioned you did a lot of photography in the past. Now, I was scrolling your Instagram in the past few days preparing for this interview, and you've had some pretty notable people on your page. You've worked with Barstool, of course, in the past as well. I noticed you've shot Kevin Hart, Post Malone, Jaden Smith, Joyner Lucas, and more. Can you tell us how those moments have come about in your career?
Yeah, so I actually started working with a group called Cram, based out of Minneapolis, and they started opening for a lot of people. A lot of the shows that you saw, they opened with people, and then I got in touch with a guy who now works at Live Nation, but he would throw a lot of the shows. And I was already into photography, but not really familiar with the concert photography. And so I would just start tagging along and kind of became this main person for this group, and then get in these green rooms and then just kind of shoot whoever I was super interested at the time. And a lot of those things, like the Barstool one, was just chance. I snuck, I didn't sneak in there. I knew they were going to be there. That was the Super Bowl was happening here for 2017.
Okay.
And I got in there, and that was the Kevin Hart was there during that time. And they were supposed to be only credentialed people, and I didn't have credentials at the time. But I learned something through a lot of these venues. There's enough people and you look the part, people don't question you. And that's the same way with a lot of venues. And so you can kind of just, fake your way into a lot of these places and just kind of be the part. And some guy asked if I was TMZ, and I was sure, I'm TMZ. I wasn't TMZ, obviously, but I got through there, and it worked out really well.
So you got through there, and then so you pulled up to the set of Barstool and kind of just mingled, and you kind of, is that what happened?
You get there early and look the part, and
I love it. It. As a journalist, that I love to hear that stuff, and there's I can relate on some stories like that. So I wanted to know, growing up, because you've obviously started the CLR Reacts page with your father. What kind of music did you listen to growing up, Michael?
So it was usually always hip hop. I had a lot of trials and tribulations, which brought me to certain facilities and broadened my music horizon. But I think when you look at the beginning of this channel, a lot of it was focused on the Chicago drill. And one of the first artists, besides Lil Herb or G Herbo now, that I was really into, like Faisal Land is definitely one of my favorite mixtapes. But also Lil J and the other side, Lil J from Chicago.
Yeah. And guys, like that drill wave in 2012 was nuts. Like it changed. It changed music in so many different ways. Like I could take this interview a whole different way for a while, but for the sake of it, we'll stay on course. Now, talk me through the day you woke up and you decided, or you got the idea to start Criminal Lawyer Reacts. How did you come up with it? Walk me through that day.
All right. So there was a lot leading up to it. Just in short, I've always just been obsessed with YouTube, and these reaction channels started spawning up. And I was a huge consumer of a lot of these reaction channels. You had Buckethead Nation, which was the Nick and Dad. You had I'm Dante, who I was a big fan of, like a lot of these people. And I loved watching people's reactions to stuff. So in 2019 was our first video. And that was the Melly video. When I look back at the first video, I kind of like cringe because of how much better our videos have gotten.
Yeah. But the Melly video sparked a lot of friggin' interest, because just from a fan standpoint, like you watch these videos and you understand, like, man, these people are getting caught up in these situations, but it would be so nice to hear from someone of authority or someone that knows. So that's where I think you fit this niche, and I'll let you get back into the Melly video and whatnot. But go on. Sorry, I just wanted to say that.
Oh, you're totally fine. So yeah, I saw this little pocket, and I was thinking to myself, but at the same time, there's a couple of other professionals doing their own things. There's a lawyer, there's other people, but none of them would cross over to that sort of atmosphere that would talk about drill music or anything like that, because they're doing pretty, in my opinion, boring content, kind of just describing the profession. And I thought it would be really cool to see, a lawyer react to somebody rapping about murder and then talk about the implications. And especially if there's a case tied to it, what are the actual implications of these lyrics and whatnot? And so I was just like, my dad has always been around hip hop artists, but I don't think he never really gave it the full attention that I kind of coerced him to have. And really, kind of see what people were saying and the full content of what is in these songs. And so having him react to, someone say "Murder on My Mind" repeatedly, and then just going from there, all these other cases, especially take cases like that, were so fun to do because
100%.
Everything was documented throughout the whole progression of their criminal issues, and then it's intertwined with music. So having him, from his expertise in doing 23 years practicing law, and who has represented a lot of similar cases, kind of talk to people about that. It, like you said, it gave them a broader insight. And, when we first did the first video, it didn't do much for the first couple months. And so I didn't think anything was going to happen or come out of it.
Yeah.
But I look back a couple months later and there was like 100,000 views, and I was like, oh my God, we need to keep doing this.
Okay. So it was kind of a surprise when you got that initial boost. You weren't checking for it. You kind of just checked for it on a off day and realized, Bruce, you got to get the blicky and start this. Now, with that being said, when you started this, was there any apprehensiveness from Bruce when starting this?
Yeah, I think there for sure was, because the whole, not only was the realm of the content a little foreign to him, just musically, but the realm of YouTube and the realm of reacting is kind of a concept that to people that are in Gen X or a little older, it's hard for them to understand why somebody would want to see somebody watching content and watch them watch content. You know what I mean? And like Twitch doesn't make a lot of sense. So it's such a new wave thing. And I think after the first couple, he really started to understand like, wow, this is something here, and we built a community. But at first it's so foreign of a concept. Now,
with that being said, I had this question a little farther down in the interview, but with the notoriety that he's seen coming in and with the Patreon now, I have a question about that in a second. Has he gotten any high profile clients off the internet yet from people seeing him?
Oh yeah. So I can't really discuss too many.
Of course.
Everything's pending. But I would say as much as there's the high profile interest, anytime there's any sort of legal situation that pops up on Academics Instagram, you're going to have the @Bruce Rivers go represent this guy, which is kind of interesting. But also he's gotten a lot of non-high profile clients, people that have seen him that are from the area or from all over the country. And the overall business of the law firm, the attraction is much wider.
Okay, so he's starting to see the pullback, if you will, because I'm sure at the beginning, should we do this? Because I could see a lot of lawyers being apprehensive about it because would it ruin credibility? You know what I mean? When they go into the courtroom. And with that being said, my next question is, have you ever seen your dad in action in the courtroom?
Oh, 100%. All growing up and not too long. I mean, I was working for him for a while. I still am technically working for him, just a different way. But I've also been what you would call a law clerk in his office, and write memos and other sorts of court documents and stuff like that. But travel, I've been through really fun murder trials. That's a weird thing to say, but
interesting though. They're fascinating.
Yeah. And one of my favorite lines from him was during a murder trial. He was a witness came up who was the son of the person that died. And this guy who he'd been smoking meth and a lot of other stuff, but he also is an informant in the area. And the guy is going on the stand about how he's beneficial to the community because he gives so much information to the police. And my dad looks at him and goes, "Nobody needs to know you're a snitch." And the prosecutor objection, and obviously it was sustained and whatnot, but it was just kind of a funny moment, and I think a very determinative moment in that trial. And he ended up getting a pretty good result in that case. And then there's been a lot of other larger trials that I've been a part of and watching him. And he's got this way about him that he carries himself in the court, kind of exudes confidence. And
okay. So my next question, I needed to cut you off there because my next question is kind of a funner question in the sense that maybe for the fans to get a little crazy in the comments. If you were to compare Bruce's style in court to a current rapper in the rap game, who would it be?
Damn, that's a hard one.
Take your time. I'll put the Jeopardy music.
Yeah. No. Really, really strange comparison. But I would say just his overall aura, this is a kind of a weird one, but Remble, it kind of reminds me
Wait, who?
Remble, he's kind of a newer artist. You would recognize some of the songs. And then I just think about just kind of his confidence, almost a little Dirk-esque in a sense.
Yeah. Fair enough. He's very confident. I can see that in his bravado, even when I interviewed him. And I guess you need that as a defense attorney. Now, obviously, when you start something new, as you said, and you're trying to explain something to someone who's in an older generation, and the fact that, like, Dad, people are going to view this and whatnot. In terms of filming wise, did he have any? Did he have any troubles adjusting to being in front of the camera, or did he have any problems with anything starting this project? That he had to improve on?
No, I think that he's pretty naturally a good public persona. I think that, as you can see, like how he was on the No Jumper podcast and all these other things, he's kind of just naturally like that because in some ways his job is performative in a sense. And I think he was pretty natural at adjusting to that. Obviously, there was a lot of little nuances that he had to create for himself when he we started the show and what kind of pocket he was going to get into. But just generally being in front of the camera, it kind of a natural at it. He had a radio show in like 2014 with a radio station here.
Okay. Fair enough. So he's kind of used to being around the media then. Now, your YouTube page is at 300,000 subscribers. That's crazy. How would you and your father like to utilize that going forward? So
a couple plans in the works. We obviously the podcast thing is something we're going to start doing very quickly. We're about to pick up some of those mics, those Shure soon.
There you go. Yeah.
And the whole little studio set up. We want to really integrate. I would love to get rap artists on the show and judges, prosecutors, other lawyers, people in the legal system. We have someone from the Innocence Project that we're looking at having doing an interview with about wrongful convictions and whatnot. So we really want to integrate a lot of that stuff together. At the same time, I would like to branch out. There's a lot of talent here and sort of use the platform for outlet for other artists as well as we continue to grow. Because there's just so much talent that is in need of networking. And that's basically the only thing.
And in a sense, what you just said, like you're bringing all those people with such knowledge, it could help the rap community right wrongs in the sense maybe these rappers start being a little more sensible when they shoot their videos if they start watching your podcast. So it just being informative in that sense, I think is going to be huge for you guys. So I think that's super exciting. Now, we mentioned the YNW Melly case earlier, and I know that was your first big video. I'm sure you and your father have talked about it, but I want to know, we know this case is starting. Is he getting out? Yes or no? I need a yes or no answer. Do you think he's gonna beat the case or he's not? I asked your dad and he's kind of tiptoed. I need to say yes or no for you, so you could just give us something.
It's never black and white, though. I mean, that's the speculation that everybody wants to make. Mm-hmm. I'll say that it's a very fascinating case, and there's a lot of elements about it where it could go either way. I think that the fact that there's no witnesses that could go really long, and all they have to do is poke holes. All they have to do, because it's not the lawyer's job. It's not the lawyer's job to say that he didn't do it. It's the state's job to say that he did that. And if you can't, I'm saying that there is enough facts in there where it is possible that he walks away from it. But I cannot concretely say he's going to get out or not going to get out because it's too complicated for that.
Okay, fair enough. All right, I you know what, you gave us something there. Now we see the state of hip hop in an overall sense. If I were to ask you to give a statement on the overall well-being of hip hop right now compared to the 90s, 80s, do you think it's in a better state now or back in the day?
Well, definitely commercially, it's in a better state. But if you're talking about the kind of the core, the heart of hip hop, I mean, it's just so broad, and in a lot of ways, I think that it's advanced, and I think that there's many different variations of artists coming out, and it's completely new. And I think that a lot of people got really screwed over in the 90s that were prominent artists, because you look at how much the artists received, even if they were huge artists back in the 90s. I mean, it's nothing compared to some of the success that people are having today. But I do think the direction that some things are going currently, and I think this is a combination of the internet and whatnot, I think negative attention is far too often rewarded when it shouldn't be. And it's a lot of kids looking up to other kids for the most part, because you don't have OGs anymore, like people they would look up to. So that's a concerning part. And then you have things like TikTok and other things where people are just doing the most wild stuff to get attention. And it's like Lord of the Flies, where it's just all these young people that are egging each other on to go further. And that's probably the most alarming. There's no one to put them in check.
I totally agree. Now, you guys had a lot of success. I got to ask about it. You got brought down to the No Jumper set in LA. Tell us a little bit about that. What was that like?
Oh my God. So it was an amazing experience for me. My dad, obviously, he was more recently familiar with No Jumper, but for me, it was like a kid in a candy shop. I mean, I'd been watching No Jumper since its conception, and looking up to Adam and a lot of the artists I was really into, like Bone, Such Hollow Water Boys, when I was younger and stuff like that. That was like one of their first. So it was very, for me, and the whole trip was amazing. We did a bunch of cool stuff while we were out there, but I was pleasantly surprised with how the interactions between my dad, 54-year-old man, and Adam with all these tats all over and kind of younger, how they would, how the synergy would kind of form between them. But they treated us really well there, and really cool staff and everything like that. And after, you saw the Snapchat of them drinking the tequila we brought them.
That was genius. No, it looks like you guys had a lot of fun. Now, you said you're a kid in a candy store in the sense you grew up watching Adam. What was it like to meet Adam himself, in the sense you met him off camera, you probably chopped it up a bit. Was he all that you thought he was? Yeah,
honestly, Adam wasn't, if I did anticipate any sort of like jadedness, it wasn't there at all. He was really cool, really willing to talk to me for a good little amount of time after the show. And he wasn't just, I'm done with this job, I'm off to the next. He was open ears. He wanted to hear some of the things I had to say, even though I wasn't directly the guest. I really like who he is as a person, because you have those situations sometime where you look up to somebody, then you meet him and you're like, oh my God, not at all who I thought they were.
Now, I've heard you guys mention it a bunch, and your fans are probably wanting to know. You guys mentioned that you guys wanted to start the golfing with Raptors. Can we expect to see that this summer, or it might be pushed back a bit with all of these plans in the works?
Well, I'm really hoping to get at least a couple of them done, because it's the networking and outreach. We're always willing to do so, and we're willing to travel. And I mean, my dad is pretty hyped about the Jacksonville scene, and I'm a little, I don't know. I think it would be really cool to get him out there and, play with Young Ace or whatnot. But there's a lot of stuff going on with
safety wise.
Yeah, safety wise in Jacksonville. But I mean, there's a lot of other artists that we can get connected with and hopefully do that, because I do think that conception of an idea, and that actually came from the comments. That idea of golfing with rappers came from the comments. So
no way.
Our community is amazing.
That's crazy. Because you guys are very interactive with the comments and whatnot, and I love that. Love to see that and whatnot. So I'll leave it on this. If you were to look into the camera right now and tell your dad one thing, what would it be about his we'll say about his channel and what he could do with it?
Persist, keep it up, chill out a little bit, and and just enjoy this moment, because it's so rare.
I think the potential is crazy. And me, I message you here and there saying, like, I feel like you guys are playing your hand perfectly. And I just want to commend you guys for it. And with that, I want to thank Micheal Rivers for sitting down with me, the creator of the CLR Criminal Lawyer Reacts show, in a sense. But it's kind of like a Batman and Robin, because your father's so great. He mentions you every moment he can. And I know the comments love that. But with that, happy 4th of July. Go enjoy yourself. And I shall see you, who knows, in the future. But thank you for sitting down with me. And with that, that's Capital Culture. I'm Christopher Wheeler. Thank you, Micheal Rivers.